Now let's get reaction. We are now joined via Zoom by Tax Justice SA founder Yusuf Abramji. Yusuf, thank you so much for talking to us this afternoon. Now, this was essentially a 5-month ban during hard lockdown, with many stakeholders at the time attributing the rise in the illegal cigarette sale, raking in millions to criminals, to the ban. What's your reaction to this latest ruling?
Good afternoon, Onati. Indeed, you'll remember that when this ban was announced in 2020, shortly after the lockdown started, there was a lot of anger, a lot of disappointment, and people were sick and tired of government trying to impose their ways on them. We know that during that 5-month ban, the illicit trade in cigarettes specifically and alcohol really escalated to extents never seen in South Africa before. We know that smuggling of these products, especially from Zimbabwe into South Africa, grew extensively, and even up to today, we are now seeing the effects of that particular ban, and these criminals are continuing to pocket millions and millions of rands. And we estimated that when that lockdown ban was announced by the minister at the time, these criminals were making an estimated 100 million rand each and every day through the black market. We also, as Tax Justice South Africa, the non-profit organization, gave an affidavit to the Western Cape High Court when the various companies and individuals brought that particular application to declare the ban illegal, and the full bench of the Western Cape High Court then ruled in favor of British American Tobacco, JTI, the Black Farmers Association, and the individuals who brought that application. And in our affidavit, Unati, at the time, we raised exactly the point, and the problems we are now seeing is that the illicit trade is growing, the criminals are making money, the black market in tobacco products is really beyond the level that we ever could have dreamed about. And that is why even today, Tax Justice South Africa issued a fight back charter, because we are sick and tired to see these criminals making money and government is not acting. So the judgment by the Supreme Court of Appeal most certainly is welcome, and they concurred with the 3 judges of the Western Cape Division of the High Court that ruled in favor of the applicants, to say that this ban was illogical. There was no scientific proof. The minister saying that it was contributing to COVID was found to be untrue. So most certainly we welcome this particular one, because we believe that bans is not the way to go, Unati.
Now, of course, the tobacco industry should welcome this ruling. But what is concerning, in your statement, you mentioned, as you've said, that this is still continuing. You're saying illicit cigarettes are now on sale in up to 3/4 of stores in some provinces, according to repeated investigations by market researcher Ipsos. Now, as Tax Justice South Africa, what should government do in terms of recouping those monies from this illicit cigarette market, if I can call it that?
And I say it with the greatest respect. We do not need organizations and market research companies like Ipsos, and they're doing a good job, by the way, to go and prove that we're having a problem with the illicit trade in South Africa. You can simply go to a corner shop, a corner cafe, a spaza shop, and you will find that a packet of cigarettes, for example, is being sold below the minimum collectible taxes, the MCT, brazenly, openly. The figures that Ipsos have released repeatedly shows a dramatic increase in the numbers over the past few years. In fact, in the last numbers that came out just a few months ago, it shows exactly what you mentioned. 3 out of 5 stores are now selling these products on the black market, which means that the South African Revenue Service, the government, we the people of South Africa, are losing billions and billions of rands annually as a result of this type of illicit trade that is growing. Now, that is why the Tax Justice Charter is very specific about what we believe, Unati, needs to be done. We say, number 1, seize and swiftly liquidate all assets belonging to the suspects involved, and they are not suspects who are not known. They're doing this openly and brazenly. Secondly, we say impose an immediate travel ban on all suspects within South Africa, penalize the banks and the other financial institutions that continue to conduct business with these criminal suspects, and we are also asking Interpol to issue red notices for all the suspects that have been involved. So we want government to take action and take action immediately. We know South Africa Revenue Service is trying. We know that there have been some breakthroughs, but we believe it's not even the tip of the iceberg. These criminals are continuing to openly operate. They're continuing to sell their products, and it's now time for the talk to come to an end, and we want action, and we want real action, Unathi.
Yusuf, before we wrap and you talk about criminality, I'd like your reaction on the latest crime statistics that were released today by the Gauteng Provincial Commissioner Elias Mawela, showing very shocking statistics indeed, particularly as it relates to murder stats increasing by 45% in Gauteng alone. Your reaction to that?
Unathi, Gauteng can now be officially labelled as a gangster's paradise, as we've often been told. It is the crime capital of South Africa. If you look at the murder numbers, we are talking about 1,400 murders being committed over a period of 3 months. There's an average of about 15 people being killed each and every day. Look at the car hijacking numbers. It's skyrocketing in Gauteng. Look at burglaries, robberies, CIT robberies, kidnappings, which I've spoke about openly, repeatedly. Heidelberg, for example, is topping the national list, followed by Delmas, Mpumalanga, and then Gauteng. Most of the other police station areas has this problem. So we're really having a serious problem, and I think the acknowledgement by the Gauteng Provincial Commissioner is great, but I think we need to see action. We know that station commanders need to be held to account. We know there are logistical problems. There's a shortage of police officers, not only in Gauteng, but throughout South Africa. But if one looks at the overall numbers in Gauteng, Unathi, we really have a serious problem, and government needs to intensify the fight against crime in Gauteng as a matter of urgency. But really, it's very, very worrying when one looks at the figures for 3 months, the first 3 months of this year. And even if you compare it to last year's figures, which was the lockdown, we seriously have a massive problem in Gauteng as well.
Yusuf Abramjee, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. Of course, Yusuf Abramji is from the Tax Justice SA. He speaks to us about crime, but also essentially that Supreme Court of Appeal in Bloemfontein upholding an order by the Western Cape High Court which declared unconstitutional and invalid Regulation 45 of the Disaster Management Act, which prohibited the sale of tobacco products during the national state of disaster.